Come on, one and all, let's be freilich, let us have a ball. The groom just kissed the bride with tender love. Hooray, chosn kale mazel tov. Hey, look at that shissel of punch. Soon you'll hear a big Israeli lunch. Charge! The brisket and kishki is a machayim mighty fine. Let's be happy, folks, it's Simcha time. They say they wants to eat cause he's hungry like a bear. The bubbish left for Zaydiat to dance a little share. The rabbi made the bracha, and the band is playing music for the mishpacha. Uncle Sam, he's acting stolz. He only wants to dance a Russian waltz. Let's be happy, drink the glass of wine. It's time to hul yo ho, it's Simcha time. Everybody all together, clap your hands, so we can give a shukele with Mikela's band. Hey vey, it's a mechayedik, soll sein mit Panos and Glick. So come on, one and all, lass mir sein freilich, let's have a ball. The bride is cooing like a turtle dove. Chosn kale mazel tov.
Thank you, Francesco, for that marvelous introduction. And thank you all for joining us on this Sunday, and happy early Thanksgiving to everyone. I still can't believe the holiday season is upon us, and that will be looking a lot different this year. I hope you still find moments of joy this week, hopefully including this one. I am Miles K. Glancy. I'm the General Manager of Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra and Chorale. And I'd like to welcome all of you, our dear PBO supporters, to our next event in our Jews and Music online series, Jewish Soul Food and Identity in the Global Diaspora with FRANCESCO Spagnolo. This particular event has been generously sponsored by friend and supporter of PBO, Robert MISON, who you'll hear from in just a moment. Now, before we begin, I'd like to let everyone know that because we're in Zoom standard for this experience today, you do have a choice as to whether or not to make yourself visible so that we can see you by turning on your video. You can press start video or stop video on the bottom of your screen. No pressure, but it'd be nice to see everyone's faces for this event. Now, in order to toggle with your view settings to optimize your experience with us today, if you are using a computer, you can go to the top right-hand corner of your screen. It should say View, and there you can toggle between gallery mode or speaker view. I suggest being in speaker view when the presentation begins. If you'd like to type questions to our panelists, you can please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom of your screen. You may submit questions at any time, and we'll try to get to every question at the end. I must remind you that with any live stream event, we may experience some connectivity issues or sound or video blips. We apologize in advance if that does happen.
And it exactly happened now. Miles was explaining what the glitch would be, and the glitch happened. Hi, Robert. It's you and I as
I know, and I think
finds his way back into.
I'll start. How's
Please.
that?
Thank you so much for hosting this and for sponsoring this program.
Thank you, Francesco. I think I'll start the introduction.
Yeah.
Welcome to my kitchen, the perfect location for tonight's program. I hope you have a glass of wine ready and something to nosh on. I am Robert MISON, and I'm delighted we started without you. I'm delighted to be your host and sponsor of tonight's JAMOnline, Jewish Soul Food, Food and Identity in the Global Diaspora. I was honored when Courtney asked me to sponsor tonight's event, and it was an easy yes. As a patron of the arts here in San Francisco, I can definitely say that Philharmonia is broadcasting some of the best and most creative content available, and so much of it. I've been a subscriber and supporter for the past 9 years, and I've been on the Philharmonia Gala Committee for the past 3. It's remarkable how much this organization has grown, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I attended Jews in Music programs when they were live, and it's great to see how well this content has transferred to the digital format. I've watched nearly everything PBO has produced since July, nearly everything, there's a lot. And I have a particular fondness and personal passion for JAMOnline, led by the very talented Jews in Music scholar in residence, Francesco Spagnolo. It's my pleasure to recognize support of Jews in Music from the Corette Foundation, the Rossi Armstrong and Jonas J.K. Stern Jews in Music Fund, the Gaia Fund, the Marmor Foundation, and the Bernard Osher Foundation. As a good Jewish boy, I want to extend a special welcome to my parents, Harry and Jane, who are tuning in tonight from where else? Boca. And yes, Mom and Dad, I am wearing pants. PBO is the only major American orchestra and with a dedicated initiative on this unique subject matter. And I hope you'll support this program and all that PBO has to offer. And now it's my pleasure to introduce PBO's Jews in Music Scholar in Residence, Francesco Spagnolo. Enjoy soul food, Jewish soul food, and wishing you all a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Miles. Thank you, PBO, for hosting me. The usual trick of having to share my screen, so let me just get started. And it's always a pleasure to present with PBO. We've been producing concert ideas more than concerts online, but we're starting to move almost into concert concerts, the format for the Jews in Music, along with the rest of the incredible offering that PBO is putting forth in this time. And then on a few occasions this fall, I'm also just launching into specific topics, and the connection between food and music was one that we thought would be appropriate for the time. It's a little lighthearted, although maybe not only. There will be a few questions, and we'll be traveling wide and far and back and forth in time through songs. So just a quick reminder of what brings us together. And of course, if I can, yeah, I can toggle through my slideshow. Yes, just a quick reminder. Why do we keep focusing on this topic, and what's really there for all of us coming together on these occasions? What's so important about Jewish music? So first of all, through Jewish music, we are going deep into the culture and the everyday life of a global minority. So we really are traveling through time and space, and of course sounds in all kinds of often unexpected way. And when it comes to specifically to Jewish culture, through music, we that Jews have a reputation for being bookish. There's even this expression of the people of the book, even though that's a whole other story. But in general, most of our approaches to Jews are through texts and written words. And so going through music brings us into the non-normative aspects of Jewish history, Jewish life. So we learn something else and something more, perhaps. And especially when it comes to music, as we all know, it's easy to discuss it with the kind of audience we have for these programs. We're looking at the history of emotions. We're going back in time and not just learning about the way in which people express themselves, but how they felt. And so it's a way to connect to the past, to culture that's particularly poignant. And again, in the case of Jewish culture and Jewish musical culture, we're actually through almost every single piece of Jewish music we explore, we display a number of cultures in contact. So we're actually also exploring how different cultures come together, how different people come together. And in our case of music, sometimes individuals, musicians who make music together, coming from different backgrounds and cultures. Coming up next month, my lecture will be specific on the ghettos. We've been exploring through Jews in music, the wealth of musical cultures that emerged from the Italian ghettos since the Renaissance, since the 16th century, and we see ghettos and these musical expressions as really as an exchange between cultures and people. Today, I am focusing. It's almost evening here, I would say, here in California. So tonight, I'm focusing specifically on folk songs. In past programs, we've been working very much on composed music, written musical sources. In this case, we're also looking specifically at folk songs. Some of these are really folk songs, others were designed, as we will hear, for the theater. So folk songs and popular songs in all kinds of directions. Again, staying with the paradigm of multiculturalism, we'll see how almost each song is actually a multilingual world and exposes us to a variety of cultural dimensions. We'll be considering music, but also lyrics. And when it comes to folk songs that are transmitted mostly orally, even when at times they're first written down, they continue to exist through oral tradition. We also have to consider not just music and lyrics, but also music against lyrics or lyrics against music. Sometimes, and we find this often in Jewish tradition, the lyrics of a song will convey a message and the music associated with them will convey sometimes even an opposing message. So there is a wealth of ideas, and kind of folk songs are often the site of cultural debate. And they are, of course, historical sources. So we'll also consider the songs that are coming up also as ways to navigate back into history, into time. A quick overview: the songs that I am going to present today come from all of these parts of the map that's in front of you on your screen. So we're really traveling across continents and countries and most importantly, cultures. And let's get started with the first way in which food and songs are connected, deeply connected in Judaism. And music accompanies all aspects of Jewish life, and very much so in the case of any kind of ritual that's connected with food. But actually, and quite importantly, the key ritual times in Judaism are marked by the connection between food, and in this case, wine and song. And I wanted to start with a homage to Kurt Weill, who arrived to the United States as a refugee, both political and racial refugee, and tried to find his way into normative American Judaism by writing what, in my opinion, is a beautiful musical version of the blessings for the Friday night service. It was performed at Park Avenue Synagogue, and it was written for Park Avenue Synagogue, New York City, 1946. Kortweil, who had the sounds of the synagogue in his DNA, understood very well that that this text, which blesses God thanks God for blessing and creating the fruit of the vine, the grape, and therefore wine, even before blessing God for creating and establishing the Sabbath. Understood that the idiom of popular music of the time would apply very well to this liturgical text. And so what we see here is really a meeting of normative Judaism with popular culture at the beginning of the short but important American career of Kortweil. But in terms of normative Judaism, music and song are really used to teach ways of behaving, ways of eating, ways of respecting authority. And I'm very fond of a song in Ladino, Judeo-Spanish, that comes from Sarajevo. And it's a song that is designed to teach children to eat. It's kind of like a little piggy went to market, but of course the pigs would not go well with the pork meat would not go well with normative Judaism. And it's really a game song for children. So it will go more or less like this: Chichi Bunichi. Chichi Bunichi means nothing. It's a fictitious character. It sounds good in the economy of the song, of the text. Chichi Bunichi Penki. Re di Lanici, the king of Lanici. Esti dimanda pan. This one is asking for bread. This one is asking for cheese. And if this one is not a good Jew, we're gonna call Mr. Rabbi. And so it's both a way to, and then eventually the song will go for other parts of the body until the food is placed in the mouth of the child who's not eating, the baby and the small child who's not eating. But it's a way to both foster healthy habits and also respect for authority. Here's the song, Chichi Bunichi from Sarajevo in Judeo-Spanish.
Chichi Bunichi, re di lanici, esti dimanda pan, esti dimanda queso, esti si non es buen sitio, vamos a llamar al Señor Rupi. Chichi Bunichi, re di lanici, esti disi dammi un paquetico, la gallenica echó un govesico, aquí, para aquí, a la boquita del Igico. Chichi Bunichi, re di lanici, esti dimanda pan, esti dimanda queso, esti si non es buen sitio, vamos a llamar al Señor Upi. Chichi Bunichi, re di lanici, esti disi dammi un paquetico, la gallenica echó un govesico, aquí, para aquí, a la boquita del Igico.
And there goes the song. It's really one of my favorite Judeo-Spanish songs ever. But here is another one that's probably my top choice if it comes to this repertoire. This is a song that was collected in Rhodes in the early 1900s, so very much transmitted by oral tradition. And it's a song made of 7 stanzas, and each stanza is a different recipe to cook eggplant. And for those who understand the importance of eggplant in Mediterranean cuisine, will understand that this is a crucial song. But what we learned from this song, and we're going to look at the lyrics before we listen to the performance. By the way, earlier we heard Voice of the Turtle, a legendary pioneering ensemble of Ladino song based in the Boston area. And here we'll hear a recording engineered by Shoshana Weiss-Chachak, who's one of the greatest scholars of Ladino song. So the Los Guisados de las Berenjenas, or La Comida de las Berenjenas, is a song that really brings us into a whole world. We learn about people, about family relations, about geography, and of course about food and about networks. So it's really a song that's not just about eggplant. It's really a song about that reconstructs a world that's sadly, in the case of the Jews of Rhodes, was pretty much destroyed during the Holocaust, although remnants are actually not so far from us in San Francisco. The Jewish community in Seattle has many Rhodesians, Jews, and of course New York City and other parts of the world, including my hometown Milan, where I grew up. There were interesting immigrant Jews from Rhodes. So the 7 ways are prepared by somebody's grandmother, by the wife of the shamash, who's the sort of the keeper of the synagogue, and by cousin Esther from the neighboring island of Chios, and so on and so forth. And I think there's still a couple of words that are not completely clear to me in these lyrics. So if anybody in the audience, I can't really check the chat if you have any questions right now, but I will at the end of the presentation. If anybody has any insights to contribute to these lyrics, please don't be shy. Here's the song. So through these recipes, we actually uncover a whole world, a whole network of people and ideas and culinary ideas.
Siete modos de guisados de guisa la merengena. La primera que la guisa es la baba de Elena, y a la hace bucadicos y la mete en una cena. Esta comida la llaman comida de merengena. A mi tío Cherasí que le agrada beber vino, con el vino, mucho bien aire vino. La segunda que la guisa es la mujer del shamas, la que vaca por adentro y la hinchi de aromas. Esta comida la llama la comida la dolma. Esta comida la llama la comida la dolma. A mi tío Cherasí que le agrada beber vino, con el vino, mucho bien aire vino. La trasera que la guisa es mi prima Esther Dichote, la que vaca por adentro y la hinchi de arroz moti. Esta comida la llamo la comida al almondrote. Esta comida la llamo la comida al almondrote. A mi tío Cherasí que le agrada beber vino, con el vino, mucho bien aire vino. La alburnía es aburrida en color y en color. Venaremos una cena, nos gozaremos los dos, antes que venga el gozano y le quite la sabor. Antes que venga el gozano y le quite la sabor. A mi tío Cherasí que le agrada beber vino, con el vino, mucho bien aire vino. En las mesas de las fiestas siempre brilla el jandrallo, y al hacemos pastelicos ellos brillan en los platos, esperando ser servidos con los huevos jaminados, esperando ser servidos con los huevos jaminados. A mi tío Cherasí que le agrada beber vino, con el vino, mucho bien aire vino. Las
Well, let me go back to it for a second. And the song keeps going and describing more detail about ways to prepare eggplant, and at the same time more details about the network of family, friends, connections that make these recipes possible. So again, to go back to what I was trying to suggest about folk songs, is that each folk song really opens up a whole world for us. And as we will continue in this presentation, we'll see that at some point folk songs become no more folk songs, but also songs for art music. So the connections between the two at some point become closer, and that's where we're going with our research with Philharmonia Baroque and Jews in music. Of course, food cannot not lead to the topic of sex. And I'm not going too much into detail here, but this is a It's a great song that Michael Alpert, one of the leading pioneers of the klezmer Yiddish revival in the United States, collected in New York City from the repertoire of a Ukrainian woman in her, as he used to say, in her kitchen. He would sit in her kitchen, she would cook for him and tell him stories. And eventually a song about borscht came up, but it's not just a song about borscht. It's of course a song about tasting forbidden flavors. I never ate a borscht like this before, says the song. And also it's a song about cultural changes, about people rejecting their backgrounds and finding new life and essentially meeting modernity. So tasting food is also a paradigm for tasting the forbidden. And this is very much also part of the world we are discussing today. Here is a little sample. I'm not going to play the whole track, but a little sample of Michael Alpert and Brave World World performing this song collected in the late 20th century in New York City. Borscht.
Noch als Borscht nicht gegessen und ich hab noch als Tome nicht gefühlt. Ich kann dir mein Leben nicht vergessen, weil ich hab dich lieb. Ich kann dir mein Leben nicht vergessen, weil ich hab dich lieb. Oh, ich bin mir ein Bolter Geborener, das ganze Städtel keine Sache in mir. Nur der Gebir bin ich geworden ein Verleurener, weil ich hab dich lieb. Der Gebir bin ich geworden ein Verleurener, weil ich hab dich lieb.
Here we go. Unfortunately, Google Slides are not really letting us lower the volume, etc. So I apologize if its transitions are sometimes a little brutal, but this is what we have. Maybe there is somebody in our cohort today who has the year of Google, and they can ask them to teach Google Slides to have better volume control, be more music friendly than they are. So here's the thing. The main thing that I want to deal with tonight is the fact that actually many of the songs, and we'll explore several right now, that deal with food actually deal with the thorny question of Jewish national or cultural identity. How to define the culture and the identity of a culture that's diasporic, that's spread around the world, that has actually many different customs, including culinary customs. How do we reconcile all of that? It seems that many a song and many a popular song in the history of the Jews ends up asking this question, and then, as we will see, turns that question into a parody, into a bounty of recipes and foods that continue to nag us about identity and a certain anxiety about identity. So just to remind ourselves, there's for example, a variety throughout Jewish history, a variety of food wars that show that also food-wise and in their food ways, Jews are everything but cohesive. They are many cultures in one. And so a few examples of these are the rules of kashrut during Passover, the fact that Ashkenazi Jews are forbidden to eat certain foods that Sephardic Jews are instead able to eat during the week of Passover. Now, in the time that most concerns PBOs and Jews in music, the time of the ghettos, when many Jews of different origins, including Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, were forced to live in the close quarters of ghettos, these culinary and ritual differences were really major and caused problems. Another one that goes back to Italy and the same world is the fact that certain fish can be or cannot be considered kosher depending on rabbinic authority. And Italian Jews to this day joke about the fact that the sturgeon floating and swimming in the Po River would be either kosher on one bank or not kosher on the other bank, depending on who the rabbinic authority was. And the same actually goes for swordfish, but swordfish is a whole other story. And I do not have songs about swordfish to present tonight, so I just put it there. But in terms of American history, these food wars or culture culinary wars are, well, a major one was embodied in the Triffa banquet, which kind of cut off the divide between conservative and Reform Jews in the 1880s. And that, interestingly enough, resurfaced as a topic in San Francisco just a couple of years ago with new debates, etc. So it's a story that keeps on giving. And then the possibly established at the University of Chicago in 1946, the ongoing Latke Amantashen debate, which is an invented debate, just a debate for the sake of debate, but which is all centered on food and whether latkes or Amantashen are the most important food to be fostered as definer of what? Of identity. And then, of course, we could go, and I'm sure there are people in the audience who can provide much more insights than I can, but the incredible, huge topic of the gefilte fish and how it's made, and with sugar and no sugar, and it's I like to call it a Maginot. The various recipes of gefilte fish are in Maginot line of Jewish coexistence. We'll see how all of these anxieties, which are really anxieties about identity, play out in song. And I wanted to present a song that really deals with the topic of food. It's devoted. It's an ode to gefilte fish. It was recorded in Paris by a comedian and singer that was born in Ukraine, performer in Poland, in Paris, in Buenos Aires, where he died. It's not just an ode to the gefilte fish, but as we will see by looking at the lyrics, is really a quest for identity. The song will say, the lyrics say, Hungarians, what do they eat? They eat goulash, and Poles eat pork soup, and Russians eat borscht, and the Germans eat pumpernickel bread. Romanians, of course, mamaliga or cornmeal, and Georgians eat shashlik. And what is Jewish food par excellence is gefilte fish. Dating this song can be done by listening to the little jingle at the beginning of the recording, which quotes the soundtrack, the music for the cartoon versions of Popeye. So we're looking at the late 1930s, if not mid 1940s, when the song was recorded in Paris. Gefilte fish.
Zogt wo sessen Jiden mit groß Cheshik, bei jenem Zibas sich allein nicht tief. Sis par, wenn it milchig in it fleischig, nur am Eichel, wo sa jeder jidot lief. Oi, zogt wo si sa jeder Preuß Ambitie, me hat es lieb, me weiß da ke parvos. Sie sei dich Meichel mit Traditie, in jeden Reb Schabes est men dos. Gefilte fish. Oi, sie ist am Meichel, wo sa 1000 Tammen. Hab zuerst versicht es bei meinem Mammen. Oi, es ist teuer, es ist wohl am Meichel, fahrt dem Volk ist Reul, und ich geht es sich im Meul. Oi, die gefilte Füße sind Yiddish. Me kind Fischil, me Stelzel machen Kiddisch. Ich steh mich schön, rein und frisch, besetzt sich in gedeckten Tisch, mit allein gefilte Fisch. Gefilte Fisch, gefilte Fisch. Der Rotengarot liebt Gulasch mit Paprika, in der Polak hat liebt Bigos Fleisch mit Bräu. Bei dem Russ ist Reu der Borscht der Riker, und der Jecke hat liebt Klöse Kreuz. Am Mammelige gleichen die Rumäner, und der Grusiner hat lieber Schaschlik. Nor wo's geht, es weiß, wenn sie nicht keiner. Na, der Rabbin sagt mir, was es geht. Gefilte Fisch, aber gefilte Fisch.
And here you have the ode to gefilte fish that was missing from your playlist, I'm sure. But in a way, the same narrative, even in a more parodic form, resurfaces in an Israeli popular song from the 1950s, an ode not to gefilte fish, but this time to falafel. By the way, this week from students in one of the classes I teach at UC Berkeley, I learned, I was not aware of this, that the first hip hop song in Israel, the song that's considered the beginning of hip hop in Israel, is a song about hummus, titled Hummus Metantem, hummus makes you stupid. In this case, falafel does not make one stupid, but falafel, and again, this would be a whole other, like, I could probably teach one lecture about each of these songs in a way. It's a huge topic, the topic of falafel, and the falafel in Israel. But let's focus on one aspect of this. In the opening stanzas, the opening stanza of the song says, in each country in the whole world, there has a peculiar food, and even babies at the kindergarten know that those who eat macaroni are Italians, and that Austrians in Vienna eat schnitzel, and that French eat frogs. It's of course a satirical song. It has no pretension of anything. And then the Chinese eat delicious rice, and cannibals eat one another. And what do we have? And we have falafel. But it's a little bit, it's a question and answer that has an undertone of anxiety, even though the song is funny and entertaining, as we will hear. It's really about what is the food that represents us. Every people in the world has their food signifier as the signature dish. What do Jews have? And in the case of the Israeli context, well, maybe falafel it is. Of course, falafel is not a native Jewish food. Here's the song, 1957. It was the offshoot of an army musical ensemble that presented this. So just to give you a sense of how unusual the Israeli musical scene is. We've explored it a few months ago with Avia Vital, who learned the mandolin from a Russian violinist in the Negev desert and took it to the Deutsche Grammophon. So anything is possible there, including odes to falafel.
לכל מדינה כאן בעולם מאכל לאומי המוכר לכולם, וכל ילד בגן יודע כי האוכל מקרוני הוא איטלקי. לאוסטרים בווינה שניצל טעים, והצרפתים אוכלים צפרדעים, הסינים אוכלים אורז דקה ורזה, הקניבלים אוכלים זה את זה, ולנו יש פלאפל, פלאפל, פלאפל. לאבא מתנה, גם אמא כאן קונה, לסבתא הזקנה נקנה חצי מנה, וגם החותנת היום תקבל פלאפל, פלאפל, עם הרבה 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 פלפל.
And the song keeps going, and the saga keeps going, and describes how when Jews arrive to the promised land, even before kissing the land, they ask for a portion of falafel because it's so representative of Jewish identity everywhere and in Israeliness. And of course, the song is sung with a Yemenite accent to provide authenticity. And well, I could go on and on, but instead I will transition to the fact that many of the songs, and we started with at the beginning of this presentation, we started with Mickey Katz, and we'll get back to it in a little bit. Just now, many of these songs are actually parodies. Food is used to kind of emphasize a certain character, a certain proclivity, and possibly to also hide a certain anxiety about identity. Mickey Katz, by the way, is the father of Joe Gray, and an incredible entertainer who sang in Yiddish, a mixture of English and Yiddish, created parodies of many American popular songs, in this case 16 Tons, and twisted them in in the direction of Jewish food. So this is, and what I'm trying to suggest here is that there is a template. The template is song parodies in the Jewish tradition, and we will see they will go back centuries, and they will always include a ton of food, a ton of recipes, and enough anxiety to go with it. Here is 16 tons, and 16 tons of what we'll hear in a second.
Oh, I went to work in a Delikatessen, for 30 $, und plenty zu fressen. The Ballebus promised me a real gedille. Instead of gedille, I catched me a killer. You load 16 tons of hard salami. Con beef, roll beef, and hot pastrami. I hack around everything, gets zu essen. I owe my Nishume to the Delikatessen. I was born one morning and I gave a geschrei. My mishpuche was happy, it was a holiday. I wanted my bottle, I felt real chipper. I didn't get nothing cause it was Yom Kippur. 16 tons, all kinds smoked fishes, latkes, blintzes und heiße Knisches. Oh Lord, nimm mich schnell to the promised land. A Feuer auf dem Boss soll werden verbrennt.
And we can leave Mickey Katz behind, but the template is here. And then we're going to find this template back in time in all kinds of ways. To begin with, another classic of Yiddish theater song, in this case, Romania, Romania, an ode to Romania's ancestral home of immigrants, but really also a song about bountiful foods and recipes that, as I try to provide some subtitles and some footnotes in this slide, mentions all kinds of foods that require a small army of linguists to decipher and ascertain, because they're all cross-cultural foods. And even though they come to define on the Yiddish stage, they come to define Jewishness in a way. So again, a song about food, a parody, and a song about identity. Romania, Romania. This is the performance of the great Aron Lebedev, who took it on the stages, and incredible vocal and stage virtuoso.
Romania, 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 Romania. Da moliche Romania is die jetzige Romania, die gute Romania, Romania. Die wenn amol, 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 amol da in der Land, das ist a gite a schöne. Romania, 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 Romania. Oi Romania, gewalt Romania, 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 Romania. Wir nennen noch ein Land, was ist gewesen, amol, amol, ein Land, das ist a gite a schöne. Dort zu weinen ist gewesen, a Vergnügen, was die Harte, die Glisserste gekannt dort kriegen, a Mama Liegele, a Pastromele, a Karnatzele, in a Gläsele, Hey, Rumänien ist doch geht, Pintchen, da ist fix mir nicht, weit in Penny, der alle mich verweist in Katschkawau. Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam, Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam, Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam, Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam. Hey, Rumänien ist doch geht, Pintchen, Sorgen, fix mir nicht, Wein, trinkst bis der Schwerter, mich verweist der Kastrawett. Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam, Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam, Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam, Heilige Diggedam, Diggedam. Poi verde prima sline a subidar na cucina e de kuce pe kruce te ju beste mas varsher zimma ai litam zimma ai litam bom bom ai litam bom bom ai litam ai sitam kai mit beste ten sein ai de vergenigen ist dort Rumänisch Wein.
And here is Aaron Lebedev, and the song actually is really an incredible manifesto, also vocal style. And one of the other things that hopefully are coming through in listening to the songs and focusing on the lyrics is that while bringing up recipes and foods and cross-cultural connections, they also always make a point of poking fun at normative religious Judaism, at religion and religious authorities. So there is a recipe here, which is not just a culinary recipe, but it's a cultural and musical recipe that we're going to explore even further. Going again back in time a bit, in The Children of the Ghetto by Israel Zangwill, the author also famously of The Melting Pot, and an essential author in 19th century Anglo-American Judaism, we find a parodic ode to fried fish. And I'm not going to read through all the pages, but they're very funny and very poetic, twisted words about fried fish as a staple, and again as essentially a Jewish national dish. And so fried fish, and such fried fish, only a great poet could sing the praises of the national dish. And the golden age of Hebrew poetry is over. So we would have to create new poetry to describe fried fish. And then his words go into again describing other foods. So making a list of foods, Lokshen and Falafel and Kreplish and Kugel, and as he spells it in the German way, gefilte fish, as in gefilte fish. And but fried fish, he reminds us, reigns above all in cold, unquestioned sovereignty. No other people possesses the recipe. So again, what we find here is this template of parody, recipes, and the question of identity. Let's see how it goes back in time. This is a text that has no music, unfortunately, although it was designed to be sung. The Kubuch is one of the foundational texts of Yiddish literature that were published in Italy by Yiddish writers in the 16th century. So we're in the middle of the 16th century, and the Kubuch includes a food menu that required again a small army of linguists to decipher. So we find apples and trüben and grapes and nuts, but also galli de Indie, which are turkeys, coq d'Inde as in French, and meloni, and of course macaroni, and all kinds of words from various languages that find their way into this text. When I had it staged, I asked the Yiddish singer Michael Alpert to improvise a melody on this. He drew a melody from a Hasidic tradition, but this is a way to sound it for you, so you can follow the text and the translation while listening to Michael Alpert singing these texts. A bit of research in reconstructing early Yiddish and Western Yiddish pronunciation, but that again will be another topic. Here it is.
Ach, essen Sie Opelbeeren, Dusene Trauben, la 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 la. Hühnerwachteln und Caponi, Galde Indi, Turteltuben und Meloni, la 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 la. Kien Kälber in Gas, Schofferin der in aller Flasch, la 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 la. Troten Carpioni, Farosis Lokschen Macaroni. Alliaten mit gedalzene Fisch und guten Wein genug auf den Tisch. Sah rot oder was, das vernachtet für Gedder der Flasch. Die du revierst in die Zungen und auf den Teller die Lungen. Lattesin und Metelli, doppel gebroten, da sind die Brazule.
And trust me, the list of foods goes on for a couple of pages. And eventually, as you see at the bottom of the page, they start bringing in wines. And all the wines are Italian wines from different regions of Italy. And so when it comes to Italy, and here's where we're going now, because that's what you can expect from your scholar in residence for some reason, is actually a brilliant. This comes from a manuscript. It's a mid 17th century, dated around 1640 manuscript. It's in a private collection in Italy, and a version of this song was then printed in Venice in the early 1700s. With the title or the incipit of Fate onore al bel Purim. It's designed specifically to be sung on Purim, on the Purim Carnival, but it's really a list of recipes. And again, it took many people to understand what all the words here refer to. I will just point you to, so well, we'll hear it in a traditional recording, in a field recording in a second, but it mentions recipes that are no longer known or part of Italian Jewish cuisine or Italian cuisine at all, and brings all kinds of food ideas and describes an interminable meal that eventually concludes, and here is the word, with a dish called chazirata. The word chazir in Hebrew means pork. So as you can imagine, cultural historians are still debating about what this means. Does it mean meat cooked in the way in which the Christian neighbors cooked pork? Or what is this? And what is this referring to? In other words, what we find in these parodies are always challenges also to what normative Judaism is like. Interesting and but not surprisingly at all, the singer of the field recording I'm about to play was recorded in Italy in the 1950s. Was a rabbi, not just a rabbi, was Rabbi Elio Toaf, who was chief rabbi of Italy for about 50 years. And the one who published this song was his son, Ariel Toaf, a historian in Israel. So what we hear here is how the song was transmitted orally, and in one of probably the various musical versions. And the text goes back to the mid 1600s, and the recording goes back to a renewed tradition of singing the song for Purim in Italy in the early 20th century. Fate onore al bel Purim. And if we were all together, we would learn to sing the chorus together. So we won't be able to do that because, again, Zoom doesn't allow us to sing together, unfortunately. But that's the way this song should be sung. Imagine good food, good wine, and many different wines, again, are mentioned here. The omnipresent Malvasia, but also Trebbiano from the Piacenza, from the Emilia region. And also mentions a sweet that one time I contacted a patisserie in one of the towns that still makes it. It's basically 2 layers of unleavened bread filled with nuts and honey, and it's possibly the only patisserie chef that still makes this dish in Italy. And once I remember I found one in the mail. He mailed it to me to have a taste. So I can guarantee it still exists, and many of the wines mentioned here still exist. And what still exists, and with this I kind of close my presentation also, is this template of eating, drinking, making merry, poking fun of religion, listing all kinds of foods, and questioning in pretty deep way who we are, and not just what we eat. Here is Fate onore al bel Purim from Italy from the mid 1600s.
ארצה היום קיוויתי לשיר אל נגמר בו מצאתי ראיתי ישן מן המצר יקטירו פתח אל מועד מורדרנים לבונה בשמחה וברננה מורדררים לבונה בשמחה וברננה. Fate onore al bel Purim che lo merita in effetto, dica a voi altri bachurim che cercate ogni diletto, non abbiate alcun sospetto d'esser tenuti sciccorim. Fate onore al bel Purim, fate onore al bel Purim. Fate onore al bel Purim, su belle bachurot, fate torte sinaini, voi zittelle zecchenot, cuboletti e moscardini, questi son bei bocconcini, per noi altri nearim, fate onore al bel Purim.
And this was my journey through songs that speak about food and identity and religion, and also questions about all of the above. And I hope this is a good way to enter the holiday week. I now have access to the chat, or if anybody, Robert, it's good to see you again. I was yes. focusing on my screen share, and Miles as well, and everybody else that I see on this call. It's good to have everyone in this call. But of course, if there are any questions, I think we do have a couple minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? So I hope that everyone can hear me and see me now. I'm sorry, my computer decided to implode earlier, but yeah, if any of you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, or if you're sharing your video, you can just kind of wave your hands and I can unmute you. Harry, do you have a question? Hold on one second. I'm asking to unmute, and then that should give you the. There you go.
How's that?
That's okay.
Good. Just a comment, not a question. It was interesting to hear that the music of the 15th and 16th centuries, none of it was Ashkenazic. It was all Sephardic. Mm-hmm. Just so people would understand.
Yeah, in this case, actually, I would say probably would argue was Italian, or actually earlier on, it was a text that was an Ashkenazi text in Italy. There is such a thing. But yes, absolutely. I tried to mix as many cards as I could. And that's what I like to do. But thank you.
You did a nice job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very
much. Francesco, I have to say that this is the this Sunday afternoon I never knew I needed. What a fun, festive, and fitting, a unique event for all of us, and especially fitting it being, we're about to hopefully eat a lot of very delicious food. And I never knew I needed to hear songs about eggplant and gefilte fish, but you really gave me a laugh today, and but also connecting food and identity in such a unique way. So greatly appreciate that.
Thank you again to everybody.
Thank you so much to Robert. Boy, what an event to sponsor. My goodness, great choice. And of course, thank you so much for your incredible generosity. As always, Robert, we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Francesco. And this makes a great presentation with the pairing of the coffee one we had a couple weeks ago. So you have the Jews fighting over coffee, and now you have the Jews fighting over food. Perfect.
There we go. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I think that that does it for us. And so thank you all for joining us for this event as part of our Jews and Music Online series. You can keep in touch with us by making sure you're on our email list. You can do so on our website at philharmonia.org. Very special thanks to all of our Jews and Music sponsors, and especially to Robert for sponsoring this event today. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Bye, everyone.